My guest for today is my great friend, Andrew Greene, or as I like to call him, Andy. Andy is the mastermind behind the hilarious comedic writing Substack page, Toilet Read. Currently sitting at number 16 on the Substack humor leaderboards, Andy has now written consistently on a daily basis for over the past 400 days. Today, we sit down to discuss the strength that comes with being able to laugh at yourself and the power that laughter has to bring light to the darkest of days. The link to Toilet Read's Substack page is in the description. You can support Andy by becoming a free subscriber with access to 6 days worth of content per week, or you can go one step further and support Andy by becoming a paid subscriber with full access to all content. Thank you for tuning into the R20s podcast. Without further ado, Andy Greene. When you read about the backgrounds of comedy writers, a lot of them will have a similar type of story where they'll talk about how they were the shy kid in school. They were never very vocal with their comedy. They were always kind of kept to themselves. They would write down their ideas, but they can never express them to the rest of the world. That was never you. You were always a very vocal kid, always very charismatic. I wouldn't classify you as the class clown by any means, just given how well-rounded you were. You were very intelligent, still are very intelligent, such a good builder of relationships. It was always within you, though, that you were so witty, so sharp, and always so observant of the world around you. And it really just combined all into this amazing gift for comedy that you have. Where do you think that gift came from? Was it something that you identified in yourself and you had to grow upon it as you were growing up? Or do you think it was just something that came naturally to you?
It's a good question. I think probably I'd say that it came pretty natural. It was just like those moments when you'd be in class and a teacher would say something and a quip would come to your head and instantly you'd know what to say, how to say it, the right cadence. And it's kind of like one of those things where the more you do it, the better you get at it. So I guess I'm saying the more you call out in class and make an obnoxious joke, the better I got at it. But it also like filled me with so much joy to make other people laugh, especially in a class setting, especially, at summer camp or on the baseball field or something like that. So I'd say that I never really was shy with it. You're totally right. And I think a lot of it also has to do with my parents and my family, who are all very, very funny people and people who I admire and are also really quick and sharp and have that comedic gene as well. But yeah, no, it's something that I've always really, really, really loved more than anything is just that ability to make people around me laugh and like I think in a sense make them more comfortable with me just because I'm using some self-deprecating humor or whatever it may be. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. That was quite an intro. I'm like blushing.
I gotta try to get the best out of you. I mean, I only got you for so long. I gotta ask the hard questions. I can't be dilly
Exactly.
dallying.
Please do.
I can certainly take a couple seconds to attest to your parents being some of the funniest people I've ever met. Though that is absolutely a fact.
Thank you. Mike and Liz will be thrilled to hear it.
I hope they are. You mentioned it briefly. Just you have always been doing this, and you're using it as a way to make people laugh, and you've certainly made people laugh. Toilet Read has been going on for 400 plus days now, which is absolutely crazy. Just how consistent you've been. It's been such a pleasure to watch your evolution over the past year. And you even mentioned it right at the end there. It's jokes that are born out of self-deprecating humor in some cases, and Toilet Read was kind of born out of this self-deprecating event that took place in your life that you're very vocal about, with everything that happened with the med school admissions process and everything that took place with COVID. It was this time in all of our lives that hit us differently, and it was it was this perfect storm for you. It seemed like that this idea was born out of it, and something that was so beautiful that we might not have had things gone differently. I want to avoid the cliche question of, oh, how do you look back on this experience now, or does it still hurt? Because the answer is obviously yes. Like that it's an experience that if anyone had to go through would be painful.
Mhm.
I want to focus more on how you use it in your writing. A lot of comedians will use self-deprecating humor as a way to express themselves and show this more vulnerable side of themselves, and their audience will connect with it. And you can clearly see that your audience connects with it. Heck, I even think the TikTok you made about your med school applications got like 2 million plus views. People obviously connected with it, and it's ever present in your writing as well. How do you go about walking that line, though, where you're using it as this creative fire to fuel your writing, but you're not using it so much so that fire is not consuming your own personal mental health and it's kind of causing you more damage than it is putting out good?
Hmm. I think that a big part of it is getting over it first. And to say that I'm over it, I think would be an accurate statement. I'm over the fact that I didn't get into medical school. I'm over the fact that I spent my college years studying biology, waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning to go to organic chemistry class for a career that I now no longer want. And it was a tough thing to grasp, and it was a tough thing to get over, that fact that I had kind of I don't want to say wasted, because I love every second that I spent at college. I loved the field that I was studying. It just wasn't the right fit, and I didn't realize that at the time. So, but once I got over that hurdle, I was able to incorporate it in writing. I was able to incorporate it in TikToks and kind of laugh at myself because it's objectively funny. Like, I think a lot of people are really sensitive and have a really thin skin. But I went to college for 4 years and really wanted to be a doctor. And then I applied to be a doctor and everyone said no. And I just thought that that was hysterical. I was like, there's like all this talk around the world about a shortage of doctors. And, I go to this school and like I'm ready to be a doctor and I put myself out there and I work my ass off on applications and they all just like flat out said no. And it was like really funny for me. Um, and then obviously, so I get rejected from all the medical schools and I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. And I have to like reassess myself and look inside. And I definitely had some really introspective periods over the pandemic where I was like, what am I good at? And kind of the answer and that North Star of things that I've always been good at are making people laugh. And whenever I pictured myself as a doctor, I pictured myself as like the funny doctor who'd come in and like be like, who the heck let this guy, who the heck let Tom Cole in my office? And it
Mhm.
was never me like saving the day or anything like that. It was just me being able to make people comfortable and, create an environment where my patients and my patients' families were comfortable having me as their care provider. And I think that that was in large part because I really like talking to people because I like making them laugh. So as soon as I kind of had that epiphany, it was that kind of set the ball rolling on this future of, what, maybe there's other careers for me which don't require a ton of debt and a ton more education, where I can make people laugh and use that strength of mine.
I was thinking about the potential answer that you could give to that question, and it pretty much fits into what I was thinking exactly, where you can see the tangible benefit that you put on the world when you become a doctor. You can physically see the work that you do if you're working with children. Oh my gosh, just the work to make a child smile, to make that family feel better about the situation. You work with anybody. You have tangible results of how you're helping people in this world. And we love tangible results as a society. We love to see money that people make. We love to see the new car that people have. But it's hard to measure the impact of the intangible. And what you're doing with your writing, that is the definition. It's the pinnacle of how important the intangible is in this world, how important art is in this world, and why art has sustained the test of time and it's evolved over time. Because we all need that sense of joy. We all need that sense of happiness in our day to day lives. Because in so many aspects of our lives, it's lacking. And what you're able to provide to people through your art is something that is so cherished and should never be taken for granted by anybody who consumes it. And it's not much of a question as it is just me commending you for all the work that you're doing because I know I can't relate to that experience as a whole, but as we talked about before, you're being vulnerable so I can find bits and pieces that I can relate to. I know when I was applying to the military academy, I went through that whole process and they were like, no, you have a nut allergy. You can't come here.
Hmm.
That's objectively funny. looking back on it in hindsight of like, yeah, I went through all their tests and stuff like that, but they're like, nah, one nut. And no, like that's objectively funny. And it's hard to be able to laugh at yourself like that. But I see you and you're able to take this experience, channel it, and turn it into something beautiful. And that inspires me to do the similar kind of thing where I could take my past experiences and try to channel it into something beautiful by hearing your story, hearing the stories of so many of my other friends, and hopefully beyond hearing stories of people who I don't even know yet. So again, it's not really a question. It's just more commending you for your mental fortitude and how you've been able to go about the whole situation.
Yeah. Well, I
You,
appreciate that. It sometimes feels like a little bit, when you do it for 400 days, it feels a little bit sometimes like you're just like shouting or writing into the ether and you're just
yeah.
like sending it out. So, to have even just like to have someone come up to me as a friend and be like, oh, this toilet read that you did the other day was like really great, or like I didn't really like this one, or just like any sort of feedback, just to know that it's being consumed and thought about, because like I don't expect my friends to read every one. I mean, it's 400 days. That's like a big commitment. I'm sure they've got other stuff to do. But, sometimes those types of moments are what keep me going and are what keep me, uh, motivated to continue on, just knowing that I'm not really doing this into the ether, that people are reading it, that people are enjoying it. So your words definitely go a long way and mean a lot, Tom.
Hey, it's the least I could do, and I feel the same way. I've only been doing this. By the time this episode comes out, this will probably be episode 26 or 27. And even in December, I took a couple weeks off because I was doing like a charity challenge, and I didn't produce episodes. But even for this 5 month period that I've been producing it, same type of ordeal. If somebody listens to a whole 50-minute podcast, I mean, I would hug you.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing. I'm so grateful that you would take the time out of your day to do that. But I don't expect that of my friends, family, anybody. And it does feel like I'm talking into the void sometimes, and that's why I love having my friends right now come onto the show, because I'm talking to somebody and
Yeah.
I can make sure that my thoughts aren't just me being crazy in my bedroom here, just talking to the wall. But as a creative, I feel like that's something a lot of creatives have to go through in the beginning, especially. I've heard other comedians talk about exactly like you said. You have to perform to the abyss in the beginning, but the key part is while you're performing to the abyss, you have to pretend like you're performing to the president of the United States. You can't just be performing to the abyss just to do it and gain that practice. You have to treat every single repetition as if it's life or death right now. Like you're doing this because this is what you want to do. This is the goal that you want to achieve. And you have to practice now so that when it does come time and the lights are on,
Yeah.
you're ready. You've done it so many times, and you've done it back when nobody was watching, and now hopefully you get to knock on wood one day everybody who you want to watch is watching, and you already
Exactly.
prepared yourself for that. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you about that consistency, but you've already answered the
Yeah.
question. I'll ask you more about. I was reading through your old articles, and you talked about how you had an 80-page document of just ideas
Mm.
for potential toilet read articles that you're going to make. How do you go about adding to that list, filtering through that list on a daily basis, trying to think about what article you want to do today? Is it more I have an idea, I just got to build upon it, or is it kind of just rolling with the times? Like I know you just did one about Viola Davis yesterday. It was very timely. When do you break into that arsenal of your built up preset ones, and how do you go about building that into a full fledged article?
Totally. It's a good question. I think that my normal day in terms of writing toilet read is as follows. I think about the news, I read the skim the front page of the New York Times or whatever outlet I'm using, and I see if there's anything that's just like really easy picking. Like George Santos was like the easiest article I've ever
Yeah.
written. I like came up with the idea in 5 minutes and had it written within 15, where I said that George Santos is a liar because he said that he loved me and he went to college. So like those ones just sometimes they come really naturally, and other days I will be sitting there on that 200-page document scrolling through for no joke 2 hours, where I'll just be looking at past ideas, seeing if I can add to them. And sometimes the ideas are really, really built out. Sometimes I have paragraphs written. Sometimes I'm almost ready to copy and paste it and post it.
Yeah.
And other times the ideas are as simple as a word, where I'm just like, this word is funny, or like I haven't used this word in a while. Let's see if I can use that in a headline and like somehow craft it to be funny. So the ideas really vary in terms of how fleshed out they are. But I have a fun time kind of going through and seeing what today's topic is going to be. But, the most common question I get from Toilet Read is, what are you writing about tomorrow? And the answer almost always is, I have no idea. And I love that
Yeah.
because it's just like this, um, I don't know, just the uncertainty of it, of like tomorrow could be my best article, or tomorrow could be an article where I write it and 6 people unsubscribe automatically because it's horrible. It's kind of fun to like toe that line and just not really know what tomorrow is going to bring, like in a figurative and or metaphorical and physical sense. But and it's a lot of fun to skim through that big list. So yeah,
I think the listeners can relate. Obviously, they don't write like you do, but on a daily basis, when we're going to our job, the largest reason why so many people, especially the young workforce who go to their job, are so unhappy is because they know exactly what tomorrow's going to bring.
Yeah.
They know exactly what tomorrow's going to be. It's going to be the same thing that happened yesterday. It's going to be the same thing that happened last week, and there's no variety.
Yeah.
And once you're in that environment for so long, there's so many studies that show that if you're in the wrong environment, it just crushes your creativity
Mm.
and it crushes your ability to be able to perceive the world in a way where you can see the beauty and just the objective humor that's in the world, like you talked about. That's one of the key killers of everybody's adulthood as you go forward. Is you end up in the wrong situation, you can't find that way out because you don't see the world around you and see potential opportunities for what they could be.
Mm.
And that's what I think is so beautiful is you're doing this right now and you're able to look at everything in a lens that is so objective, and you can say, oh my gosh, this is amazing, I want to do this. I don't have to be in this mold right now. I can do whatever I want to, and the world's my oyster to create it. And if you look at comedy in a scientific sense, I guess you could talk about what makes up great comedy. You could lead someone down a path where you're talking about one thing and then completely do like the Uno reverse card at the end, and then you just have like a good punchline that makes it funny. You talked about you picked specific words. I watched the whole 5-minute video about Jerry Seinfeld talking about how Pop Tart's a funny word. Like it's true.
Yeah.
Good juxtaposition, that superiority type of complex where you're belittling yourself or you're belittling like another group. Those are all scientific ways of being comedic. But what they all have in common is that you're being a really good observer of the world. You're seeing it through a lens that other people don't, and you're able to connect these things really quick. Like we talked about in the beginning, how you're incredibly witty and you're just able to bring things together. When you're in just your day-to-day routine, I think a lot of people struggle being present. They struggle just to be observant. They think, oh, only in the best of situations do I have to really soak in the moment, the best of times. But it's those little moments of everyday life is where the real magic happens. So when you're going throughout your day-to-day life, how do you go about just being present in the moment? How do you go about really observing the world as opposed to just being in it?
Totally. I love these questions, Tom. Wow. Um, so I've been saying lately, and I started my last stand-up set actually. I've been trying stand-up here and there. Like eras, like, oh, she's in her like revenge era or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I am like cemented right now in my gratitude era. And like I am so grateful for the life I'm currently living. I'm so grateful for the friends that I have around me. I'm so grateful for the ability to have a comedic outlet, a creative outlet. And, I'm grateful for the city I live in. I live in New York, and I think that it's absolutely, full of incredible, unique things that a lot of people in New York, especially people who have been here for a few years, will completely look past. And I think that the ability, it's a learned ability too, that I've been like really working on, because I used to be someone who would just like walk down the street and, see like a crazy
Yeah.
street performer doing something and like not even bat an eye. But like the fact is, I think that it's really important to zoom out at least once a day. And, you know, I don't even know. Like the other day, I was like, I forgot what it. Oh, I went over to a friend's house and we were getting ready for book club, and because I'm a part of a book club, and I
Mhm.
like just paused the moment for a second. Like I literally, was like, look at what we're doing. Like we are living this life. Like we're in our mid 20s. We're like sitting here cramming for a book club that we're like not ready for. We're about to walk to the East Village. Like I'm looking outside at the Empire State Building from your window. And like it's just a really, really beautiful moment that in 10 years we're going to look back on and be so immensely grateful we got to experience. So I think that we should be grateful for it now. And I think that that's just been how I've been trying to operate more and more these past couple months and years. But at the same time, I don't know how. I think the question was how, and I don't know how. I think it's just like being really purposeful with yourself and saying, like, hey, like, let's just zoom out. I know that there are some immediate stressors going on in my life, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's money, whether it's, you know, X, Y, or Z, but there's like a lot of beauty in the world. And I think that looking at it is really a good skill to have, and one that people should work on if they can. Is that like a mean thing to say? Like, I don't even, it's not a mean,
I don't think so at all.
I should
And
put the baseball.
don't worry about it. Even if you answered the question of how, I would have been taking notes actively because I would have needed my own answer. Because it's exactly like you said. It's something I've talked about on this show before, where I do actively try to practice gratitude on a regular basis. Maybe not daily, but I try to get to daily. But I let so many little things. If a little thing goes wrong in my life, I let it consume my life, and I'm thinking about it all day, and then it'll block out the 10 good things that happens, and I'm just focused on that one little thing that took place, and that gratitude goes out the window.
Hmm.
And what gets me back to being grounded is doing stuff like this, where I have conversations with people who I really care about, and I get to hear their stories about how they come back to ground and they can really just be in the moment. And that keeps me grounded and keeps me reminded of just how fortunate I am to have people like you in my life, to have so many people in my life that I get to share these moments with. Same type of ordeal. I get to be in New York City, which is just incredible. It's a place that people dream about going in their whole life, and maybe they'll go to once. It's just stuff like that where you have to really put everything into perspective, that yes, there could be a lot of things in a lot of different areas of your life that could be going wrong, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. They're so insignificant. Just how like something could have happened on the school playground and it could have been the end of the world at that time, but do you even think about it now? No.
Yeah.
You get by everything. The hardest day was yesterday, and now
Yeah.
you're here today. I know we just talked about being present in the smallest of moments, but you are also no stranger to challenging yourself. I'll start with stand-up comedy because that's one avenue that I did want to get into. I know you've done it a couple times. You've talked about it on Toilet Read. You haven't gone into much detail about what you actually tried to do in terms of material. But in terms of writing for a literary form versus writing for a stand-up routine, they're very different exercises. For one, you could be writing for somebody else to do a stand-up routine, and you have to be able to match your words to their cadence, to their delivery skills, to who they are as a person, and you have to be able to write around who's in the room with you. So you can't be delivering something to a group of people who are not going to be able to connect to it. You can't be writing about New York City if you're in Oklahoma to a bunch of people who've never been to New York City. Um, I know you're very new to that space, and it's something that you want to keep continuing to grow in. But how do you compare those two experiences so far? Is it something that you think you want to continue to pursue on your own, or do you think it's something that you want to write more for other comedians who might be doing sketches or different types of variety shows along that line?
Sure. It's again, a really good question. And it's definitely a field, as you said at the end of your question, that I'm very new to. So if I'm speaking too much like an expert here, just know, listener, to take this with a grain of salt because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But the stand up writing is much different than writing the newsletter that I write every single day. You're absolutely right with that. And stand up is something that so far I've enjoyed. I'm doing open mics at the moment, which means that I am paying bars to let me talk for 5 minutes. It's not like they're paying me with a drink or anything like that. They're not doing me any favors. I am going there and I'm like just practicing in front of other comedians who then will give me pointers or compliment me on sets or jokes or lines. And it's been a really, really fun experience. And I think that a lot of people really enjoy doing stand-up comedy when they're starting out in the comedy field, because even though it's really hard, and even though most of the time you're going to get up there and have 5 minutes of silence while you're telling your stories, it's also immediate feedback, and that's something that you don't often get. A lot of times people, whether they're comedy writers or just writers in other settings, will work on their ideas for a really long time and then maybe pitch them to a friend, and the friend will just be like, that's not funny. And stand up is really nice because you'll know right there and then, if you nail the delivery and everything, is going right in the room and people don't laugh, you might not have as much of a gold nugget on your hands as you once thought. So I really love the immediacy of stand up and the fact that I'm able to tell what's funny and what's not right away. Um, at the same time, I definitely see myself more of a person behind the screen. I'm not good at playing characters that aren't myself. So I've like at this point been doing stand up just about my life and the embarrassing things that happen in my life. And there are certainly no shortage, but I'm sure that I'll run out one day, or I'm hoping. And I really have trouble kind of putting on different hats. And that's something I'll have to get better at in comedy, because I'll have to write for people wearing different hats. But for the moment, I'm just trying to get good at writing for Andrew Greene rather than, whoever is out, Jerry Seinfeld or whatever, even though Jerry Seinfeld and I are clones. We're
Exactly.
just freaking hot Jewish guys. Um, but yeah, so I've been enjoying stand up. I'm not good at stand up, but uh, it's something that I definitely want to keep grinding at because I know that it also could open a lot of really great doors for me. And it's really nice to just be in an environment of other comedians because it's a supportive group and they all want to see everyone succeed, um, and are trying to lift everyone up rather than the alternative.
And I encourage you to keep grinding, and I encourage you to tell me when you're doing your next stand up so I
Yeah,
could be your number one supporter.
I'm too afraid to
um,
make friends there most.
we'll cross that bridge one day. Maybe I'll trick you into telling me when you're doing your stand up somehow. I don't know. I'll have to figure out a good method. Even like you just talked about, I love that you continue to do it, even though you claim not to be good at it. Everyone stinks at every single thing that they do when they first start, and it's about not getting discouraged, like you said. I think the other part of it, which the large population of the audience can relate to, is when you're in front of other, I guess you could call them colleagues if we're thinking of it in a large sense, but you're with other comedians who are trying to accomplish a similar goal as you are. And I think where other people get absolutely lost and they get it absolutely wrong is they'll view that as their competition as opposed to viewing it as a resource that they can rely on, as someone who they can turn to for pointers, like you said, or someone that they could just network with in general. You never know who you're going to be talking to. Even when you're outside of your set, if you're just talking to them in a personal sense, you never know what kind of connection that person has. And that's how a lot of comedy, in a sense, works. You talk to one person, they know somebody who works at a network, and there you go. Now you're in the writer's room and stuff like that. When you're communicating with fellow comedians, they're people from all over. They're older than you. I don't know if there's any younger than you, but they're from all different kinds of backgrounds, and they're doing all different kinds of sets based on their personal experiences. How do you go about talking with them? What kind of conversations do you spark up after your sets? Is it more focused on your set and kind of pointers, or are you more just trying to relate to them as a whole, as more of trying to get to know them personally and try to build those relationships up?
I would say it's probably the former, where I'm talking about the set, but it's funny because you're not talking about, or at least in my case, you're not talking about the content of the set, but rather the structure of it most of the time. So a lot of times I'll ask them for pointers on, structuring my jokes, structuring my stories and things like that in order to
Mhm.
pack a bigger punch, because a lot of times I really trust my gut in terms of what is funny and what's not.
Yeah.
But with stand up, I have like a really bad habit, and a lot of people I'm sure do in the beginning, of either providing too much background on the joke or not enough background on the joke, where the punchline just doesn't really hit the way that the comedian wants it to, and it takes a lot of trial and error. And I think that other comedians are a fantastic resource for that because they're people who have been doing it for years sometimes, or sometimes they're just a fresh set of eyes who are looking at your material and could easily say, hey, I think that this should go first in order to provide more context for the rest of the set or something like that. So I think that the majority of it is talking about the craft, but at the same time, it's definitely a lot of, I don't want to say networking because I feel like there's like I don't even know. I don't
It's a
want to.
dirty word.
Yeah, it feels dirty a little bit. But I definitely would say that what we're doing is quasi networking. I don't know if quasi is the correct word because I don't know what it means. But um, I think that we do network a little bit, but in a really casual sense, like it's like, hey, I'm doing this show. A lot of people who are more established comedians will be like, hey, I'm doing this show in Manhattan or something. You should go check it out. Or I'm going to Bushwick
Yeah.
and would appreciate your support there or something like that. So it's really nice to hear and be in the know about the comedy community because it's a tight knit group, and it's a group, as you said, that's filled with people who have the connections or the jobs that I am looking for. So,
Yeah. And I always I try not to use the word networking just because I actually do think it's such a dirty word. And it's because it's the transaction that's implied.
mm,
There's obviously a transaction, but the transaction a lot of people think of is, all right, I'm going to talk to you and I don't care about you, but you have something that I want and I'm going to try to take it kind of
totally.
manipulatively.
That's how I feel
Um,
about the word. Even though it's
yeah.
not how the word is, that's kind of how I feel about it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, there's going to be a transaction almost in every single interaction that
Yeah.
you have. But I think the way that you have to go about it is, like you said, you take a genuine interest in the person you're talking to. You genuinely want to hear what they have to say about you, and in return, hopefully, you could be able to do the same kind of thing if they ask for it, or like you said, maybe they did something nice for you. You show up to their show and you go support them. It's a it's a nice transaction where you never know where that relationship's going to lead. Maybe that one day they do have that job that opens up, and that'd be awesome. But
Yeah.
you're not just talking to them because you know that they have a job and they're going to hand something to you. That I've never seen it that it should go that way.
A
Um,
little side note, if you don't
yeah,
mind.
yeah,
So
go
I'm
ahead.
really good. I have a knack for recognizing people on the street. I have good facial recognition, I think. And because of that, I've seen a lot of comedic creators on the street, whether it be TikTok, whether it be from TV, whether it be whatever.
Yeah,
So I've seen, 3 cast members from SNL, and I've stopped all of them on the street, and I've, like, been that guy where I've been like, "Hey, like, do you have any advice for a comedian who's, like, just starting out?" And I will say, and I'm sure that this is the case for a lot of creative fields and a lot of fields in general, but these people have been, and these are like celebrities. It's like Kate McKinnon and, all these like famous people um, who have stopped and talked to me about how they got started and what strategies I should continue on or maybe uh, give up if I'm headed down the wrong route. And these people have been incredibly helpful with their and generous with their time in talking to me, who just like comes up to them on the side of the street. So I think that while we're on the networking topic, I'm really grateful because this community of comedians has, I don't want to say taken me in because it feels very unofficial in that, or it's more unofficial than that, but it really is a nice group of people from my experience who are not super competitive and are hoisting each other up, um, as you were kind of saying.
that's awesome. That's so awesome to hear that people even as high status as Kate McKinnon would take the time out of their day to talk to you. I think it's a universal truth where people can sense where if someone like you is coming up to them, they can sense this genuine interest in your vocal flexion. They can see it in your eyes. You're not coming up to them because they want a picture or
Yeah.
you just want something from them. I think the right people when you talk to them and you that's what you should be doing when you're our age. I know we're getting into our mid 20s now. And you're not considered necessarily young anymore, but you're still so young. When you go up to somebody, it should be, hey, I just really want to learn. Like,
Mhm.
how did you do it? People are going to respond to that. I think 9 times out of 10. And that one person who doesn't respond, maybe you don't want to be working with them in the first place. Like,
Totally. Yeah.
that's the approach I think everybody should have, no matter what field you're trying to pursue. If it's something creative like comedy, if you're trying to get a job in finance or something like I don't know anything, go in with that approach. You're just there to learn. You really don't have anything to offer these people. Let's be honest, unless you want to offer your time or like I don't know, I can walk your dog, but like you can't offer them anything professionally that they don't already have. The
Mhm.
best thing that you can do is go up to them and just ask, "Hey, I really just want to learn that," and
Yeah.
I keep doing that, dude.
Yeah.
That's so
Absolutely.
sick. I wish I had those facial recognition skills. I'm gonna ask what kind of glasses you wear, but you certainly have picked up, even though you claim that you're not any good at stand up comedy. Your TikToks are hysterical, and I want them to come back.
Thank you.
You've gotten so many comparisons. Every single comment that I read is you get the comments about how your comedy is so similar to Nathan Fielder. But I know from reading that you actually think that Tim Robinson is the funniest person in America.
Mm.
So I want to know, what is it about Tim that you admire from his comedic style, and what about his comedic style do you try to take into yours?
Hmm. Tim is just like, well, I love Nathan Fielder, let it be known. All of those comments when people say that are like the biggest, wind in my sails of like, keep
Yeah.
going, you're on the right track, like keep going. But I think a lot of people in our age group have kind of stumbled upon I Think You Should Leave, which is Tim Robinson's sketch show.
Hmm.
And it's really unlike any sketch show that we've seen in the past, just because it is so based in reality and yet not at the same time. Like I feel like it's just, I don't know. There's something new about I Think You Should Leave, and it just feels so unique. And Tim's voice feels so Tim, first name basis. He's my boy, I guess.
Shout out. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that he's like a really, really cool guy who's got a brain that must work like backwards and upside down,
Yeah.
like the ideas that he's able to come up with. And I'm sure it's a team of them that are coming up with this and just pitching crazy ideas in a writer's room or getting high or something like that. But whatever they're doing is working. And it's so cool to see it, all come together in those sketch shows. And they're sketches that I admire so much. And I've tried so many times to replicate a similar voice. and just for the life of me can't. And I think that that's something to be said for like the uniqueness of everyone's voice, where, you know what, it might be really hard to write a Tim Robinson sketch without Tim Robinson in the room to like give you his input on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really admire Tim Robinson, and I love that show and all of the people who are on it and writing for it. I would love to send you a resume.
I think they'll check it out.
Yeah,
Absolutely. But
they'll love the pre-med part of my resume. But I love sending resumes for
everything should
comedy
just be about
jobs.
that one time.
Yeah, my comedy jobs, I usually I love sending my resume. It's like volunteer at the children's hospital, and I'm like,
I was the clown that would go into the rooms.
yeah, no, just be fucking around. Oh,
Even that idea of your voice, voice is something that I think comes with just consistency as a whole. It's something that I'm trying to focus on. I'll even watch like I don't watch my own stuff, but I'll like see some stuff while I'm editing of like the first or second show that I've done, and I've already seen just like the change in my literal voice as I talk, but just the change in my demeanor, and I could see it throughout your writing as well. There's definitely just more cohesion. There's definitely a better sense of style, I think, and you develop your style just as you continue to do it more and more. And I even see it in your TikToks, especially. I I think you're really onto something on that front. Absolutely, because they're ideas that I would never think to do, and it kind of ties back to those challenges that I talked about. You're really good at challenging yourself. You were able to make content out of biking across America. You made content out of a printer. You made content out of trying to get into Gramercy Park. These are all ideas that just people don't think of. I never seen the printer idea seems so simple on the surface, but I'd never seen anybody doing it before, and you did it flawlessly. It was hysterical every single time.
yeah,
So I think you need to applaud yourself in that sense, first of all, where you have something going. It's not something I don't want to BS you. I'm not trying to hype you up. I'm trying to be your. I'm not even being an interviewer right now. I'm just kind of being your friend. You have something here that is sick.
yeah,
Like this is something that if you would have told me back in middle school when we were playing baseball that like, you wanted to grow up and be a comedian, I would be like, yeah, I could see that. Like this is
thank
something that I know that you can do.
you. Yeah,
And my biggest piece of advice to you is just don't quit.
yeah,
I know life gets in the way a lot where things might not be going the way that you want, like we talked about before. In other segments of your life, might be time where you think about, all right, I don't know what I'm doing in like my day job, I gotta try to figure something out. Whatever takes place, I encourage you just to keep this in your life
mm,
for even if it's 15 minutes a day that you take to write. You never know what's going to happen, and I can tell you one thing is if you do quit, you will never find out what would have happened.
yeah.
So that's my final
No,
pitch to
that
you,
means
just to keep doing what you're
it
doing,
means
because
a lot.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I've been loving the TikTok stuff, and the hiatus is definitely one that I'm not too pleased with and want to get back on the saddle.
Yeah,
But then it's like this big, like you just start to question yourself, like it's like I haven't
yeah,
posted a TikTok now for 2 months, and now I'm with every single idea. I just look at them as so, when I wrote them, they were fresh, and then I
yeah,
reread them, and they're less fresh, and then I reread them 2 months later, and they're even less. So it's just like I think I just need to do it. You're right. I just need to
yeah,
like get back on the horse and like make some TikToks that fail and be okay with it. And I'm like a little bit afraid of the failure, um, because it feels like such a public failure, and that's a scary thing.
yeah.
But it's worth it for the splendor. What's the word? The spoils of it. I'm not gonna-
Yeah. To the
Yeah,
victor goes the spoils.
yeah,
But again, I can't relate to this exact scenario, but similar type of ordeal where by the time this one comes out, this episode will have already come out. I do like solo shows too, where when I can't get a guest, I just try to do something by myself just to stay consistent. And I had this idea when I first started the show that I wanted to like test myself, and I wanted to do something about male loneliness specifically. And I wrote it down. I wrote down like a script. The show comes out on Tuesdays this year. Valentine's Day is on a Tuesday, so I was like, perfect. I'm gonna put out an episode about loneliness on Valentine's Day. And I wrote that down months ago, and I kept reading it, and I was like, I don't know, this might not go over well. I don't know, this might be a little bit weird. People might like give me like phone calls being like, hey, you good, man? Like, what's going on? But it's just something that I sat down. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Like, if it gets a good reception, good. That's what I
yeah,
wanted. If it gets a terrible reception, at least I tried.
yeah. And you
I
learn.
think exactly you learn from your failures just as much as you learn from your successes. I think you learn more from your failures. So I know I personally would love to see you put out a TikTok, and I think, like you said, you just gotta do it, and not everyone is going to love everything that you do, and that's a truth throughout life as a whole. Not everyone's gonna love you in general. Not everyone's gonna love everything you do, and even the most prolific of comedic writers will tell you that they'll write 100 jokes, and then 98 of them will get thrown out, and 2 of them will make it into the actual shoot, and 1 of them will get cut in post production.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that it goes. And you got to be comfortable with that sense of rejection. You got to be comfortable with that sense of, I got to keep working and working, and then one of them's going to stick. And that's
This
just
is
how it
good
ends up going.
motivation. I'm literally gonna listen to this over. Whenever I'm feeling like in a TikTok rut, or I'm afraid to write for the day, I'm gonna listen to this because this is actually really. I feel fired up. I'm gonna go write a
Thank
sketch.
you. You go run through a brick wall, but just be safe about it. All
I
right.
might. All right. I
Um,
gotta walk down a couple stories first.
yeah, please do. And then hang up a poster in your cellar asking who stole your shirt again, if it's possible.
Exactly.
How were those Untucked shirts, by the way? Were they comfortable? I
Yeah.
don't know. You don't. I guess you have to lie because they might be watching.
Untucked, my favorite shirt. This
Yes.
podcast is sponsored by
Sponsored by Untuck It. That's not true. I don't want to get sued.
Untucked. The Untucked shirts were great and a really fun, funny surprise. Like
Yeah.
for reference, I made a TikTok about losing a J. Crew shirt, and then J. Crew sent me that shirt that had been stolen from my lobby, and then Untuck It just out of nowhere was like,
Here
"We
you
got
go.
another package people are going to want to steal," and I'm like, "What?" And then they
Huh?
sent me like 6 of their beautiful shirts, and I
This is weird marketing.
love them and
Yeah,
wear them often. So it was a bit of a funky surprise.
that's so sick, though. I love that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. All right.
cool.
So I'm out of questions, but I wanted to do a little rapid fire session with you.
Let's do it.
You've been writing for over 400 days.
Mm.
You've had a lot of quotes out there.
Oof.
So I want to go over some of them.
Oh
We'll see.
man.
I want to see if your opinions are still the same because you had some good ones.
There, I just want to say a quick side note.
Yeah.
Some people will tell me that they liked my toilet read newsletter yesterday, and I'll say I don't remember what I wrote. So this is going to be really fun because I probably will not remember almost all of these. We'll see.
Okay. So when I was reading them, I'm glad I did this now. I wrote down the date that you wrote
Okay,
all these. Do you want me to tell you the date that you wrote these before I
sure.
tell you the quote, or no?
Yeah,
Yes.
go for it.
Okay. This was December 27th, 2021.
Oh, so my
This is
third day writing.
this
Sure.
is yeah. You said Curry in a Hurry is a bad short story idea. I thought that'd be pretty funny. Do you
Mm.
still think it's a bad short story idea?
You know what? I think it would be really funny sketch idea. I don't know if it would be a
Yeah.
good short story idea, but I really had the vision of because there's a place in Manhattan called Curry in a Hurry, which serves some of the worst Indian food that you'll ever have. But I really love the concept of you having to prove that you're really in a hurry in order for them to give you the curry.
Yeah.
So you come up and you like show them, proof of that you're late for work or that the subway is coming in 2 minutes, and they're just, like, shoveling the curry, getting it everywhere, and like chicken tikka masala is all over you. So I stand by that being a bad short story idea, but maybe a
I would. If that was a sketch, I'd watch that. If that was a sketch. That'd be.
yeah.
That'd
Thank
be
you.
pretty cool. You're welcome. January 4th, 2022. I gotta be all business when I read
Okay.
these. There's talks of a new pope coming around. It keeps coming
Hmm.
up in the news. Do you still think Adam Sandler's a good choice?
Adam Sandler would be a great choice. Absolutely. I think I talked about his outfits in that and that he wore really baggy shorts. And I think that would be a really fun shift to the garb that has been traditional for so long in the
I
papacy,
think so.
whatever.
Yeah. I
It's
think
really
they
nice
could
to
use.
pick it up.
They're really big on tradition. I don't know. I think maybe a little change would be
Exactly.
kind of good. January 14th, 2022. This
Right.
one's relevant because the Grammys just happened.
Mm,
Do you still prefer Taylor's originals to Taylor's version?
absolutely. Yeah. Any version of the song that can financially support Scooter, what's his name? Scooter
Scooter
Braun.
Braun. Yeah.
Yeah, I am trying to support that guy through thick and thin. I know that he didn't write or sing or any of that, but I think that he just deserves that money. So yeah, I always support Scooter's versions rather than Taylor's.
Good.
I'll
Be
stand
firm. Be firm in your views. I like that. March 11th, 2022.
by it.
Do you still wear pants 12 times before you wash them?
Absolutely, Tom. I'm like I could shift this camera over to my bed, and you will not be happy with the pile of laundry that is there. I have a daily routine where I just like carry like this all of my laundry from my bed to my desk chair and then back every morning. And there are a lot of pants in there that maybe have been worn upwards of, 12 to 20 times.
That's a solid number.
Pants don't get dirty. Everyone
No, I mean,
dirty.
I kind of want to defend you, but I kind of don't want to as well because I think my mom might be watching,
Mm,
and then she'll be like, "What do you mean you're not washing your pants?" And
Tom
then
Cole, on the record, washes his pants. He
washes.
only wears his pants once and then he washes them.
I just throw them out.
Yeah,
I go to my local Goodwill and I'm like, I think someone else could use these. I
yeah,
mean,
a brand new pair of pants every day.
every time.
Yeah,
Come on. 420, 2022.
must have been a good one.
It was. It was the top 5 most embarrassing moments of your life.
This was a great newsletter.
This was phenomenal. There's a lot to unpack here. But this one's not more of a question on your views. I just want to reiterate for the audience. On one of those, you talked about how in a high school baseball game, you made a play at second base and you went to attempt to throw the ball to the first baseman, but you proceeded to trip over your own shoelace
Yes.
and throw the ball 30 feet into the air in front of a bunch of pretty girls.
Yeah.
That is very true. And I think you're kind of underselling how funny it was. So I'm just going to kind of reiterate it as the right fielder in this situation. So in case you don't know baseball, the second baseman's here and I'm the right fielder. So I'm standing behind him. So I got a full slow-mo view of what
Mm,
it was like to watch him fall. And when I tell you it was so beautifully unmajestic, it was
yeah.
something else, and it was against our high school rival. And I think the best part of it was that I think the very next play, you made like a sick pick,
To
and
end the
nobody cared. No, to end the game too, nobody cared
Yeah.
because it was just that funny that you fell right on your face.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about you being funny as hell, and you know that moment. I don't think you're trying to be, but oh my god, was that funny?
Yeah. And it wasn't the only time that I had fallen on my face that season as well. I think I also did on that turf field when we were playing catch 'em or something,
Yeah,
trying to like turn a double play. But yeah, no, I made the best play of my life one play later. It was off the pitcher's glove. I went in barehanded it and then threw like a little sidearm, like Patrick
yeah.
Mahomes style. And like everyone when I got into the dugout was like, that was mortifying. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that we're focusing on that. Yeah, that was I
Andy Green,
replay that every
great
night.
baseball player, just has one really interesting play
Yeah,
that didn't really affect anything. But oh my god, what a story!
exactly.
May 11th, 2022. Again, not much of a question, but you said every single person hates nuts in their cookies. As someone who's allergic to nut allergies, I just really wanted to tell you that I really appreciated that because I hate nuts in my
Yeah.
cookies.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah,
No one has ever said, "Thank God there are nuts in this cookie." I was thinking it was missing nuts. Like that's just crazy.
I kind of say that about everything. I don't know. Maybe I'm the weird one, but I really did appreciate that. June 3rd, 2022. Why are you embarrassed to listen to Smooth by Rob Thomas?
Smooth by Rob Thomas is a great song. What did I say about it?
You said that it's one of those songs that you listen to, but you don't publicly tell people that you listen to.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right, and that's one of the takes that I'll take back because Smooth by Rob Thomas it's a banger and a half.
I on my TikTok not too long ago, I got a guy who popped up and he was like, if you need me, I'll be listening to like Santana and Rob Thomas's 2002 hit Smooth or something like that. And I wanted that t-shirt so bad. And I think I need to go buy the t-shirt. I'm going to send it to you because
Yeah,
I want you to publicly tell people that you're listening to Smooth by Rob Thomas because I have no shame in that song. That song
exactly.
is fire and flames.
It is good. We'll get
Yeah.
matched ones and we'll wear it out and about to the bars. People will love
Yes, I think people will love us.
that.
August 6th. If you had to right now, no cheating, could you now finish all 9 beers as you play 9 holes and shoot under a 24 over?
Absolutely not. That was a really hard challenge. I was like struggle. Maybe it would help if I didn't start at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like I literally pounded the first beer at 7 o'clock in the morning. But that was a really fun toilet read. That was one
Yeah.
where like it involved me to like take the train home and like have a mutual friend of ours, Brandon, be my designated driver, and it was really a blast, and I was a little disappointed in myself that I didn't finish the 9 beers over the 9 holes of golf. But I'll be back. I'll try it
Yeah.
again.
There are some mountains that aren't meant to be summited on the first try.
That's true.
Yeah. You got to look at it that way. Last one. This is not something that you have written yet, but you've just celebrated 400 days of toilet read.
Mm,
500 is closing in.
it is.
Do you have day 500 planned?
You know what? It's a good question because I've been itching to do something on my TikTok for toilet read because I've been working really hard. I've got a good portfolio of materials that I'm really happy with. And I just want to create some TikToks that are like, I write every single day. Here's what I wrote about today.
Yeah.
And I think that if I were to I'm going to try and like muster up the courage to do that, because that's scary. That's like just publishing, your personal stuff right on the internet. And like, that's a little scary. But I'm going to try and do that from day 400 to day 500, which is where I'm at right now. And then I really want to do something where I like print out a physical copy of Toilet Read of like the greatest hits for 500 and just like distribute them to like my friends who have been supporters, or like go to Washington Square Park and like give them out to strangers and try and build a little bit more of a public, image for this
Yeah.
brand that I've been working really hard on. And I think that that would be like a fun way to do it. So that's my tentative plan for 500. I'm not going to lock myself in, but maybe I should lock myself in because it sounds fun.
Well, if you need somebody to help distribute flyers or just different quotes from Toilet Read, I don't know. I got some time on my schedule. I'm not the
Clearly,
busiest person.
you're good at some finding the hits there. Those were some good ones.
Thank you once again to Andy for joining me for today's show. I certainly needed a good laugh like that. I highly encourage you all to go support Andy. The link to the Substack page is down in the description. Once again, you can either become a free subscriber or you can go one step further and become a paid subscriber. Thank you, as always, for tuning into R20s. It is such a privilege to be able to put this on for all of you. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, definitely follow along and leave a rating. It's the best way that you can help support the show, and we can help grow the community and get even more incredible guests. Thank you once again. I really appreciate it. Until next time, I'll see you.